Just how much is the cost of living expected to increase with the introduction of value-added tax? We've got that story, as well as the $1.3 million injection into an agricultural institute. This as government saves millions through budget cuts. A look at how the local Filipino community is coping with the deadly super typhoon Haiyan. We have those stories and much more coming up tonight. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Christina McNeil, and your NB12 starts right now. Joining us. Ministry of Finance officials admit that with the introduction of value-added tax next year, the cost of living in the Bahamas is guaranteed to rise. However, this morning, Financial Secretary John Roll revealed despite widespread fears, the cost of living is not projected to be anywhere near the 15% many estimate. Jasmine Bonamy has more in this report.
Government officials revealing today just how much they expect the cost of living to increase once VAT is implemented in the Bahamas. In fact, Roll said the cost of living is projected to be much less than 10%, although he could not provide the exact figure. Roll made the comments while speaking at the opening ceremony for the Bahamas Institute of Chartered Accountants Week at the Sheraton Resort. He said an Inter-American Development Bank report suggests that the cost of living may rise by about 5%. However, he said more studies have to be done before the final estimates are agreed. According to Roll, the government has been working with the IDB over the last few months to determine what impact VAT will have on prices and the cost of living.
Coming out of those, we can already see that the price impact is not going to be of the magnitude that some have speculated. It is true that when you look from sector to sector, you will see the price impact varying, but on average, it will be much less than even the 10%.
But Roll did admit that the consumer will be paying a little bit more than expected. VAT is expected to add an additional $200 million in revenue in the first year after it is implemented. However, customs and VAT collections are expected to total about $800 million. As it stands now, the government pays an average of $250 million annually to service its debt. Meantime, the Minister of State for Finance said the returns, once VAT is implemented, would far outnumber the $10 million the government is expected to spend in order to implement VAT.
All of this is a balancing act, and Mr. Roll also spoke about the fact that we are looking at an adjustment over the next 4 years or so of $500 million, meaning we have to have a combination of expenditure controls, new revenues that will total that.
Both Halkitis and Roll noted that the current fiscal situation is unsustainable. Roll noted that the country's borrowing power will be at risk if government spending continues to outpace revenue collection. He said the government's ability to give subsidies to public corporations, the tourism sector, and other sectors would also be greatly compromised if the government doesn't enhance the public treasury. The government plans to roll out VAT in July 2014 at a rate of 15%. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Bonamy.
Well, as local business owners, including a Progressive Liberal Party MP, speak out against VAT, Prime Minister Perry Christie is defending the proposed regime. Given the number of islands crying out for infrastructural upgrades, Christie insists that government must get the money from somewhere to meet those needs. While addressing Androsians during this morning's Agricultural Institute groundbreaking ceremony, the Prime Minister noted that tough decisions must be made.
There is a very active debate going on in our country now about whether or not we should agree to the value-added tax or whether we agree to it in some different form. Government is not for the faint-hearted. And that at the end of the day, we have to make decisions.
PLP MP Greg Moss recently revealed that he does not support VAT, calling it a draconian and inequitable form of taxation. However, Christie asserted today that when you criticize plans, you should come forward with better ones.
We live in a country where historically people could talk to each other. And long before you reach a point where you're fighting each other, you talk. I listen to your point of view, you listen to my point of view. If you say that you do not want this, I say, well, tell me what you can put in its place. That's what I want, just talk it.
Additionally, Christie says the government must also repay the debt it inherited from the Ingram administration.
Jerome Fitzgerald, the Minister of Education, told me on the way down here that in the last 5 years, the country was committed to increasing the debt by 40%. 40% of our national debt was committed in the last 5 years, meaning that whatever the F&M did and what we have to carry out as a result of what they did, 40%, and whether we like it or not, it has to be paid for.
While the government has been able to save $162 million through budget cuts, according to State Minister for Finance Michael Halkitis. Early this year, the Ministry of Finance asked various government agencies and departments to cut 10% from their budgets and submit proposals to reduce government subsidies by 25% in the second year. The move was in response to serious challenges facing public finances in an effort to bring down the $550 million deficit. Halkitis today admitted that they didn't quite hit the target, but were quite pleased with the savings.
We were able to cut, I think the figure was about $162 million. It went very well, didn't come in at exactly 10%, just under 10%.
Halkitis added that budget cuts aren't always pleasant, but are very necessary. The minister said there are already positive indicators that efforts are paying off.
And we continue to look within governments for ways to trim the fat, so to speak, make savings, because we understand it's not our policy, it's not our program to just say to the Bahamian people, pay more when we don't. We are not looking for ways where we can maximize what they're paying already. And I want to assure the Bahamian people that we're doing that as well. Mind you, when we tell people to cut their budgets, they're not happy about that either, you know. But it is something that needs to be done.
And the Christie administration plans to spend millions of dollars to help create a new city on North Andros. It all began today with the awarding of $1.3 million in contracts to begin work on the Bahamas Agricultural and Marine Science Research Institute, which will draw hundreds of students interested in studying in those two areas. Officials plan to sign millions more in contracts in the coming weeks, not just creating new jobs for Bahamians, but improving food security. Vani Ktut reports.
This is the future site of the Bahamas Agriculture and Marine Science Research Institute, which is expected to revolutionize government's approach to farming, not just here in Andros, but throughout the country. Prime Minister Christie and members of his cabinet visited the island this morning for a groundbreaking ceremony and to sign $1.3 million worth of contracts. Government intends to spend somewhere between $12 and $20 million on the Research Institute. 8 contracts worth more than $1 million were signed with Bahamian contractors today to renovate 8 houses in this complex. However, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Works Philip Brave Davis says that's just the beginning.
It goes to show our commitment, and what we are attempting to do is to ensure that Androsians build this complex. We are coming back shortly to award contracts for the bigger ones, for at least another 12 buildings. The male dorm, the female dorm, the faculty.
However, officials say it goes beyond providing job opportunities for Androsians and expanding the island's population. The plan is to build a city around the state-of-the-art Research Institute, which is expected to draw researchers from around the region and students interested in studying agriculture and marine science.
A new era begins with this new school. The Bahamas Agriculture and Marine Sciences Research Institute is the cornerstone of my government's plan to realize our nation's agricultural promise. My government is not just committed to progress, but also transformation of the agricultural sector.
The College of the Bahamas and Bahamas Agricultural and Industrial Corporation will play a critical role in this institute. With a massive food import bill, Agriculture Minister V. Alfred Gray and BAIC Chairman Arnold Forbes called it a bold step towards food security.
From this very spot will come people of intellect in agriculture and marine sciences, will come people who will chart the course for our very livelihood as far as our food security.
The Bahamas Agriculture and Marine Science Institute will be the nerve center for the future development of this yet almost untapped resource. I can assure you, again, this is only the beginning.
Christie says it can also create business opportunities between officials from the Research Institute and University of Miami. Additionally, he says there's a reason the Cuban ambassador and Chinese diplomats were invited to this major event.
To the Chinese who are represented here, you know of the discussions that we have recently had with the outgoing ambassador about the extent to which we believe the Agricultural Institute of China will be able to assist in moving forward.
Prime Minister Christie projected that the institute will be self-sustaining within 5 years. Government also plans to build greenhouses at various facilities across the country. The Research Institute is expected to open in September 2014. Reporting for NB12, I'm Vonik Toot.